Welcome to the men's preview show for this year's British. We're just going to jump straight in. We will start with the 59 kilo men. I'm happy to take the lead on this one. So it's the smallest class. We've only got 4 guys nominated, but to be fair, it's still going to be a bit of a battle as far as I can tell. First place, we've got Lahiru. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's got quite a clear lead. I think he's been in the 59s for quite a while as well. Like, I think that is kind of his class. So like I think I saw on the GB Instagram the other day, like he's been kind of chasing those records for a while. So it'd be interesting to see what he puts up. And then this is where I think we're going to actually have a closer battle than it looks as well. So Gibson and Mike nominated second and third, 5 kilos apart. But Kurt, who's nominated in fourth, he is a junior. He's like 19, 20 years old. I met him at his first ever comp. This will be his second comp. I met him back at the Anglian Open in July time, where he put up that 470. I follow him on Instagram. He's very, very dedicated. Like, he's very hungry. He wants to kind of make a name for himself. He wants to prove himself. And he's been training consistently since then. And his training, everything looks to standard. It looks decent. I don't think he's coached, though. I'm not sure. But he has recently joined the De Montfort Uni powerlifting club. And he trains with a few of the guys there. And I think that'll be a really good thing for him, because it'll hopefully like help him with anything if he's maybe not lifting something to standard, or just help him have a bit of a team around him and that support. So I, on nominations, have actually put him in third, because I think if Gibson and Mike are trying to battle for second, one of them misses, I think he'll sneak in there, because I mean, he's so young as well. Like 20 kilos on your total at that age in 6 months is doable.
Yeah, especially if those guys get pulled into chasing each other or something like that, and aren't kind of watching to defend. If they just get so focused on each other, all it takes is someone like Kurt just to sit back and make lifts, watch, and see if we can just cover. Obviously, I don't know how the proportions are sort of lift-wise, who's the bigger puller or anything. But yeah, that's kind of his best thing there, really. We'll just be sit back and see. Like you say, 20 kilo at that age is not all at all. Does Kurt have to cut at all to make 59, or does he kind of just sit there?
I would hope not, as it's only his second ever comp. I don't think so. But if he does, I can't imagine it's a lot. The other thing as well I made a note of when looking through everyone was Mike at his last comp, which was Southeast Classic, where he hit that 490. He took quite a bit. I think he jumped 10 kilos to his third bench. He jumped like 95 to 105 or something, and he missed it. So I think attempt selection as well can potentially get him in those 500s if he's sensible.
Looking at Gibson's open IPF, he's cut down from 6'6", and he only just made the 59s. So if he makes weight, him and the other guy have pretty similar deadlifts. So it could be either of those just kind of push one another for second. And then, like you said, Sean, that Kurt guy could nip it for third.
Do you know who's handling Kurt, Sean?
Not sure. I don't know. I don't know him too well. I'd imagine probably one of the uni guys. Your client, Sam, I think trains him quite a lot. Sam Walker.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone like him jumps in.
He's missing everything. Sam's a good lad. He'll be fine.
I don't know if he's handling him, but I wouldn't be surprised. They train together quite a lot, and Sam's the sort of person that would offer to step in, I think. So I guess we'll see. But right, 66. Who would like to take the lead?
Go on, I'll have a bit of this. So kind of a bit of a 2-horse race between Ben and Kibria. Obviously, there's 2.5 kilos between them, based on nomination. It's going to be really, really close. I come down on Ben's side of the fence only because his lifting is just a little bit more reliable in terms of his standards. Like, very solid. Squats are fine. Bench is never an issue. His deadlift is clean. Kibria is just as strong, but just his like very, very wide stance on squat. Obviously, grips fairly narrow on deadlifts and can like have a little issue with his lockout and things like that because of it. I just think that Ben's more like better reliability in terms of getting the lifts in and will just carry him through. And that's not to say that I think Kibria is going to miss anything, but he's just that little bit more on the line and that little bit more technical, whereas I think Ben can just get after it a little bit more. I think in terms of third, it's going to be a bit of a shootout really between Joey Peño, and obviously Ishtiak's down there in fifth, but has just come up from 59. So we'll have the benefit of, coming up a weight class, and has he? I'm assuming he hasn't competed at 66 yet, so it's going to be fairly unknown what he could come in and hit with that additional body weight. If his squat and his bench absolutely have blown up from the weight gain, he could be very much, giving Joey a headache for third or over and above him. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Ben also missed his third pull, so like in Malta. So you already had like another 10, 12 to that anyway.
Yeah, didn't he put it down too soon or something?
Yeah, it was the down command. He said he thought he heard the down command, and we were all at Ben, mate. Feel better than a mistake like that.
But like you look at that and you're like, I think for me he's well ahead. And Kibri, like you said, just a bit unreliable in terms of like standard. I know he's got issues with like squat depth, isn't it? So on the day, whether it is fine, the thing is, he like strength wise, he could be well above Ben, but it just depends on how clean his lifts are. But then I kind of agree with Dan. I think Ishak will probably give Joey a headache for third. Joey's lifting looks like it's going well, but Ishak's come up like, say, I don't know what he's weighing, the low 60s at the moment, but either way, he can still like push him because there's only like 25 kilo between them now as a 59. So you think like another 6-7 kilo body weight on that. It looks like his training's going decently. So you could push Joey for the third place.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. I put Ben in first just simply because he's more consistent and he's younger. He's got more room to kind of put on that total, I think, at his age. And like you guys said, like Kibria isn't always the most consistent. I did look at some recent training reels and stuff, and his squat depth definitely looks better than it used to. So I guess it just depends when he gets to the top end if he starts cutting it again. But I think Ben is more likely to have made progress in that time as well. Also just realised Kibria's total is from Manchester Open last year. He has competed since then, hasn't he? Or has he not?
I don't know.
Or was that a mistake?
I don't think he has.
So potentially then, with that much time.
He hasn't.
Yeah, I think that Manchester Open he missed. I'm pretty sure he missed a squat, at least a squat on a pull.
Yeah, I think he did.
He missed his third squat. He only got his opener on bench.
I only remember because I think I was reffing it.
Yeah, he went 120, missed 122 twice, and then pulled 281, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time to add to that total as well then and fix any of those mistakes. So it might be closer than it reads, but I would say Ben in first. And even if not, like, he's still a junior this year? Is this his last year as a junior?
Last year, this year.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, as a junior, getting on the podium is an amazing thing. So we'll see how that plays out. And then third, I did put Ishak, providing squats look deep. I think, again, in training, since he's put on a bit of weight, they've looked better. But if he lifts to standard, I think there's no reason he shouldn't be in the 600s. Now he's gained weight. And he did post the other day as well that he's not filled the 66s either. Like, he's going to be eating before weigh-in. Like, he has that advantage. But then I think Joey's training, I feel like the last few comps is just slowly getting better. So it's going to be close. So I've put, Pena also could be pretty close. I don't think I follow him, so I don't know what his training's like, but
I think he may be one to watch. I know he's got to cut a little bit, but he has looked very strong. So again,
he's young as well.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with like Connor as well. I know he missed weight for Bucks. Still did a 6 or 7 total, a really bad weight cut in terms of like bad as in like harsh, like quite a lot to drain you for that time of day as well. So you still think if he makes weight and he's comfortable making weight as well, he's probably going to hit like low 6s. So again, a dark horse there.
I think as well, it's worth mentioning for multiple of the 66s to now be in the 600s is also really cool. Like even just the podium all being 600 plus is a big thing, like let alone top 5, potentially top 6.
Yeah, the standards come up generally because I think 66s historically was one of those classes where you had very clear and then a real harsh drop off in standard, whereas now like the depth in some of the lighter classes as well, like similar with the women, we had the conversation similar with the sort of women's preview. The depth across pretty much every class now in standard is huge, and I just think that top 5 will be, I could see all being north, maybe even a bit more, like top 6 could all be north of 6. And that's mega.
Yeah. All right. 74s, I think, is going to be very, very interesting to watch. I'm really excited to see this one. Would one of you like to take the lead on this one?
Go on, Owen.
Go on, then. I have a slight bias here, so I'll be looking after Stephen Day on the day lifting wise. It's going to be interesting. My biased position is, as long as Steve doesn't miss a squat, he should be pretty. Like, I think he goes 9 for 9. He's clear. As someone who's lifted internationally, stuff like that. But he is also, again, like we spoke about, slightly inconsistent or like unconventional looking lifters, and like how Steve moves and British refereeing will be a question mark. I know that like the 675 he did at Raw Strength was like more of a chill, get your QT, do what you need to do with some pain stuff, and he feels good now. Obviously that's him. It's him, Sam and Dylan really, with maybe Krishan sneaking up, because I can't remember, is Krishan still coached by Ben? Do you know that? Is he? Yeah. So like Krishan is someone who is a consistent, reliable lifter that could, if any of those three boys kind of switch off, make enough mistakes chasing each other, that he could sneak up and be in the mix there as well. Like it's actually it's tighter than I thought. Now I'm looking at it. Yeah, it'll be a good class to watch. That will.
How's Steve's bicep?
Yeah, solid. He's no issues there whatsoever. Like I can't remember how he said he had it repaired, but how he had it repaired is basically bulletproof now. Touch wood. Yeah, touch wood.
I can't believe you've just done him like that.
Yeah. But like, yeah, he says like training wise going great, body's feeling good, and I think a few people write him off because of like how his squats can look in training and stuff like that. But from what I've seen, I think he'll absolutely be fine. And I've been bullying him for weeks about making sure, because he's one of those lifters that people will now watch expecting a high squat.
Bit like me.
Yeah, a bit like me. A bit like expecting Lewis to skip a press command on bench.
Yeah, fair.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah,
like, it's going to be good. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Dylan shows up, because the man looks diced.
Stage ready, mate.
Is he being coached now? Because I feel like for a while he was posting that he was coached by Kedrick, but he posts so inconsistently. I have no idea anymore.
I'm not sure. I think he is still with Kedrick from what I know, but I'm not sure. I couldn't confirm.
I think context as well for people who don't know. So Steve, who Owen's going on about, was an Australian lifter, lifted internationally for Australia at a couple of worlds, and then has since moved over to the UK, come over to British powerlifting, and this is going to be his first national since moving over. So obviously, he, seasoned international lifter in his own right, but I mean, I couldn't tell you what the difference between a British nationals and an Aussie nationals is, but there's going to be those question marks, isn't there? I think, especially with how his squats can look, sometimes they're going to be quite close. Sam Dew looks decent. He'll kind of come through. He's going to bench a good amount, and it's going to be like a bit more sort of subtotal based. Krishan, I'm actually not sure. I think we got to give Chris Wong a shout out as well for must be the man's like 15th British or something. Like he's always there or thereabouts in the 74s. I know he had a couple of years out, but he'll be around there, like probably in around that high 600 to 700-ish mark. It's going to be really, really close. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens if Dylan and Steve get all of their squats in as well, because I think there'll be some big totals on the board if that is the case. But I think if Steve does what he is capable of, especially coming off the back of his bicep rupture and things like that, he should be out ahead, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the thing for me was, I think I'm quite an arsehole when it comes to reffing squats. Like if someone's squat is a bit controversial, I'm going to look for every detail I can. And I know Steve, like I've seen him compete at Worlds before, like I know his squat is one that is controversial. And actually when I watched, so he posted 720 in training the other day, and actually everything looked clean. I mean, bench pulls might have been slightly quick, but whose isn't in training? I don't think he had spotters either, but his squat, kind of what he squatted, but it was definitely to depth, and he had no spotters or anything around him either. Like get him on a platform with that extra confidence of people around you as well.
I think that. Yeah.
What was it?
280, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and yeah, 720 total in training. It looks clean. It looks to standard. Like I don't think he'll have a problem on the day. I feel like British refs are pretty fair a lot, like for the most part, especially like with squat depth and stuff. Like I think he'll be good. His training looks good. Sam I put in second place because in his comp recap for the English, his final pull, I think it was a bit of a Hail Mary for something, I can't remember what, but he didn't get it. But he mentioned in his comp recap that I saw the other day that his cut wasn't great. He sat a bit heavier going into that comp, and he did more of an aggressive cut, and it just didn't pay off for him. So I'd imagine this time around he's corrected that, so potentially got more than what he had there. And then Dylan, I feel like, is just an unknown. I think if he's being coached by Kedrick still, he has more chance of putting up a bigger total. I think he put up 724 at Manchester Open last year. Like there's no reason he couldn't win, but it just depends on the cut and execution and what else is going on.
I'm pretty sure Kedrick's coming over to handle people as well.
Is it?
Yeah, I think Adam Fulak might be getting him over. So we'll find out on the day whether he's coached by him or not, I guess. Why are you laughing?
Because it's just funny, isn't it, mate? Like, why would you? It's just Dylan. Like, no one knows anything, and then it's just like on the day, whatever Dylan turns up, he might total like 750, or he might.
Even when he posts his training, like again, it's similar to Suzanne Daniel. There's no numbers anywhere. Like, yeah, it looks like a heavy squat. The bar's full. He's got loads of people spotting him, but you've got no idea what's on the bar. Like, he could be lifting squatting 300 again. Like,
Yeah.
Mysterious.
Who's head ref for that? Because get ready to dive out of the way.
I can find it. I got the link for it up.
Platform 2, session 2 on Friday.
Stuff Friday session, platform 2, session 2. You've got centre Ant White.
I hope Ant is feeling agile.
Oh yeah. It's we'll see. Oh, I know Dylan's obviously lean, but it's, I suppose, it's that water, isn't it? Because how much he rehydrates. We'll see if he spews
I
again.
don't know, mate. It's normally like yellow or green what comes out.
Yeah, spew shady.
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be the class that is the hardest to predict and the hardest to call. I guess we'll see. Owen, you'll be right in the middle of it, so that'll be fun.
That'll be a fun one, that will.
Right, 83s, which became slightly less interesting because Durins and Ade have both got dispensation, understandably, with Sheffield. But to be fair, I actually think in a way it makes it more interesting because I think the battle of the podium is then going to be closer. Not necessarily for the top spot, but I think it's still going to be quite interesting to see who comes out on top there.
Mm.
And it means we don't have to pick between Ade and Durins, which is fantastic news.
I'll get you on for the Sheffield preview and you can do that then. Who would like to take the lead on the 83s?
I can. I only really know 2 of them, to be honest. I don't know who 5th, 6th, and 7th really. I don't really know the lifting, but in terms of Kunz and Owen, I back Hubbard over Kunz. Kunz got a huge deadlift, like a really big deadlift, but I just think Hubbard, being the veteran that he is, and depending on how his training's been, because I know he's had a few injuries this year, I still back him to kind of like come out and win. But
Yeah, you've got obviously that comes obviously cuts to the 83s as well. Like I remember I think it was selections comp last year. Like he really struggled with cramping. They seem to get on top of that. Like he looked very good at Westerns, like across the board. So it's just whether he pieces that together, I think, and obviously stays close enough across subtotal to be able to pull for it. I think a little bit of a dark horse here is Tyree Miller. If it's the lifter that I'm thinking of, put up something like 785 in training not too long ago. Just trains out of like a commercial gym from what I see. So again, is one of those guys that's a little bit newer, is a bit raw. If he shows up at a national level to the national standard and on that stage, could disrupt that order a little bit. I still think I think it will go Hubbard, Kunz, Tyree, but all it will take, if again like Kunz misses that last pull gunning for Hubbard and doesn't defend, like it hasn't covered himself for someone like a Tyree. I think he's pulled like 330 in training to just basically drop down placings, not being too careful in defending. So I think that actually, with as much as it's a shame we're not going to see during an Ade lifting, becomes a very exciting and still a very high standard class. Like we've spoken about depth quite a lot over the 2 previews. Like there's literally, even without those, still 3 guys in the 83s talking about being around 800.
yeah, well,
I think it's going to be interesting with Owen. I'm inclined. So with Owen, I would put him ahead of Kunz on based off of 2 things really. So when he did Croatia Euros, earlier this year, he said he was really, really struggling to get used to squatting in SBD sleeves when he's been training in rigs for the longest time. And he said it really threw off the mechanics of his squat and how he was like dropping into the hole when he had some problems with depth at Euros. And I think him turning up in those sleeves that he's used to, he seems to get a lot out of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see him squatting up in the 280s. This is all if he's healthy and all is well. And then if his bench is anywhere close to what it was pre-rule change, like 210 plus, again, injuries permitting, I think that might just be a little bit much for Kunz to outdo. And Kunz is a little bit, it's a difficult one. Like at selections where he really, really struggled, nearly bombed out, just about got his last deadlift because he was cramping. Like, mate, I was in the warm-up room when he was warming up for deadlifts and he was not in a good way. He was like on the bike trying to stop himself cramping and he just looked like he wanted to go home. If they've got on top of that, and if your squat depth is all good, it's going to be really, really close. But I think I would put Owen first on the caveat that he can squat 280 plus and that he can bench 210 plus. I think that would be enough. And then, yeah, same as what you said, Owen, like Kunz could drop from second to third chance pull if he doesn't get it. So I think if you're Tyree, you just got to play a sensible game and put yourself in the right position and let those two have it out and just be there when it matters, kind of thing.
I think it's a lot closer than what it looks as well, even though Kunz is ahead by 20 kilo. He did Westerns in Malta like a couple months ago. I know he did 770. I know like his third pull, he looked like he went for 380.5, which I assume is like a record.
Yeah, I was trying to take Anna's pull, wasn't it?
Yeah, so like even if you take a few kilos off that, and I know he did 372 at the London comp, which is still a division level comp. I think it just depends on Hubbard, like Dan said. Like you add kilos to his squat, and then his bench, if he actually hits 210 plus, and his pull still going to be over 3, like it's going to be really, really tight between the two of them.
I'm going to just be different and put Kunz in first just because you got the bigger pull and because I want to be nice. But I am really excited to see how it goes. And I think it's what you've said, Dan, about Owen changing back. I'm assuming he'll be competing in A7 sleeves. See if that does add quite a bit to his squat as well, if he's now training in them and used to them. And even if, I'm assuming he will have obviously gone back to training in them, but even if he hadn't, he'd have had time to get used to the SBDs. Like, it'll be interesting to see. But I think, originally I did put Owen in first, but I feel like I need to make it fair. So I've changed my order. And then, yeah, Tyree. But like you guys said, I'm just repeating what you've all said. If any of them miss trying to push ahead of each other, then. But then I think they've both got the experience to know better than that, but I guess we'll see. Who would like to lead the 93s?
I feel like you should do this one, Dan.
Once I have scrolled to it. So Christian and Maxwell are obviously your top two. It's going to be really, really close. Christian looks really good. What did he triple 300 the other day? That's like obscene for Christian. Like that's for him to be doing that in training, whilst that means that it's a conservative option because we all know he kind of doesn't push it that ridiculously hard in training. He must be in a good way. And his deadlift seems to be looking a little bit more reliable. His lockouts look a little bit more solid. And if he keeps that bench up around 200, it's going to be very interesting. Maxwell is obviously right there as well. I think it'd be interesting, like in terms of handling and how everyone goes about it and making sure that the right numbers are on the bar. Because at the British last year, I was handling Christian against Maxwell, and me and Christian have both sat there and said this, that actually Maxwell was stronger than him that day, and Maxwell probably should have beat him last year, but he just missed lifts. He missed squats, he missed benches, and actually it was very comfortable. So if Maxwell's in good shape and is going 6 for 6 going into deadlifts, I think Christian's going to have to be on top form to beat him. But based off how his training looks, I think you can't take away from the fact that he's looking really, really strong. And I think I'm going to have Will Pickering in third. Will actually looks really, really solid at the minute. He looks like everything's going well. It looks clean. I think he'll be fairly safe there. Adam is often depends on his cut. Obviously, he kind of sits, he'll just about scrape in 93 on the dot most comps. So it depends how he feels with that. Plus traveling over as well from from home for him as well. So it'd be interesting. But I would have it as nomination, say Christian Maxwell then Will.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think I've ever noticed Christian looking this focused. Like, he's always focused with training, but he's healthy. And I don't think I've ever seen him push this much. Like, I think he really wants to prove a point in this one. And obviously he wants to win, but he just seems more determined for this one. And 300 for a triple on squats for him in training, like you said, he's normally quite conservative in training and saves it for comp day. So to hit that for a triple relatively comfortably as well, I think it'd be really interesting. The only thing with Christian is his deadlift and his lockout. But I think he's smart. He's been called enough times for it now that hopefully he'll have sorted it for this. But I guess we'll see.
Even if he does have like an iffy deadlift day, like he's still pulling over 340. It's like a second. So I'd back Christian to win.
Yeah, I have it as it's like we'll agree with that entirely. Sort of as it lays out, I think the Will and Adam battle will be interesting because like Adam always looks quite strong in training anyway, and there's like a percentage drop. You're like, okay, he's probably doing a little bit less than we see in training, but what he's doing in training is notably a lot more than what it has been historically. Like he looks like he's made a lot of progress. So even if that percentage drop down is similar after the cut, like I still think it's going to be tight. Will looks very good. Like I know he's just had to manage like pain bits and just keeping himself healthy. Like I know in the Arnolds he wasn't very well earlier this year. But he looks like he's got a lot of momentum. So I think that battle, it's almost we're going to see two individual battles there, isn't it? Christian and Maxwell will be tight, and then you've got Will and Adam will be tight. Yeah, it'll be a good one. And obviously, I'm curious to see how some of the guys lower down do. Obviously, we've not got Nathan. Nathan's got dispensation.
James, you can write Joey off, can you?
Pardon?
You can't really write Joey off either. Like,
no, that's I was about to say like Joey and James. It'd be very interesting to see how they show up. Obviously, Joey still filling out the 93s and spending time and kind of soaking up that progress.
Am I right in thinking when Joey hit that 797 as well, like his squat, he had a lot of room left, didn't he? Yeah.
It's just a standards thing for him. I think he is capable and strong enough to put out a lot more than that 797 and like I think knock on the door of that 830 range. It's just whether he gets a little bit lazy with stuff, whether that's unlocking knees and bouncing the bar on his back and stuff and getting called out on that at a national level. But he has enough people around him saying that. So it'll be interesting because, again, he's one that has a lot of potential. It'll be interesting what he weighs in at as well because he's always quite elusive about what he actually weighs in at. And I know he's filled out the 93s very quickly.
He's still got one more year as a junior as well, hasn't he? I think if my maths is right. Yeah. So it also depends how important this one is versus just kind of see where he's at, ready for juniors next year.
Yeah.
I think it'll be closer with Will and Joey than what it is on paper. I can't lie.
Yeah, so do I.
I think he's made a lot of progress and he is cleaning his standards up a little bit. It's just whether that last deadlift, he then gets a little bit excited with it, kind of ramps it or hitches a little bit. But then the last few comps have been really good to his credit. So, yeah. Or if he cramps as well. But then again, like even when he was an 83, I don't think he cut down massively. It was only like a kilo or so, but he'd always cramp on the day. And that wasn't always just down to the cut. So if he's got over that for 93s, then I guess he could have a really good day and then put like Will against it for third and then Adam as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I actually think, there's a good chance he will sweep in for third if everything's clean. With that 797, was that the day he also got called on deadlifts or?
He got called on his second pull.
Yeah.
And that was because Euromuscle was a money meet. I think it was just the right number to beat Malik. Yeah. So rather than being like, oh, this is everything he's got, I think Ben Pape was handling him, and it was very much you're here to win like $2,000. So we load what you need. And it just so happened that it was just shy of what he wanted, obviously 800 at that comp, and it just so happened to be 2.5 shy is all he needed. And obviously that's what you load in that scenario. So there's definitely more kilos in that than there was before. It just, I think, like Lewis said, it comes down to that last pull and whether technically he's made the adjustments he needs to keep the pull clean at 93, because the extra weight is just going to make that potential ramping issue worse because you're just more hunched over and less room there.
It'll be interesting to see. 105s, we'll move on.
Oh.
I think we can all agree Pape's going to come last.
Yeah, Pape's bombing on depth.
He's going to miss weight and bomb.
No, this is one I am really excited to watch. I mean, I think everyone is. The top three is literally a battle. They're all so close. I think all of their best totals are they in the 870s, or have I made that up?
Ben dominated his 860, but that was off his Manchester Open shit show. So
yeah.
So my take on this is if Sanchez pulls 410 plus, he'll win, and if he doesn't, he'll come third, because it will be such a big jump that he's going for it regardless. And if he misses the third pull, he won't be there. Ben, if Sanchez doesn't pull 410, then Ben will win, and then Sam Watt is honestly just an unknown at this point. I think, he didn't do the last British, did he?
No.
So he's been kind of out of the frame for a little bit now. You don't really know what kind of shape he's going to come in. You know that he's going to be solid. His standards are always pretty good. If he comes in top form, again, Sanchez needs to pull 410 plus. If he doesn't, maybe it's a little bit less. So I think if I had to nail my flag to the mast, I'm going Pape, Sam, Sanchez. Sorry, Sanchez.
Mate, I want to back Pape. I really do. But I feel with Sam, he's just a bit of an unknown, isn't he? You look at his All England performance and it was so good. And it's just if that bench gets back up to, because I swear he's benched over 2 in training, and he gets towards that 890 mark, Pape looks really good at the moment, but it's has he got enough in the squat and the deadlift to catch up to 890? And then also Sanchez as well, like Dan said, if Sanchez pulls that last deadlift, he'll definitely win. But I think it's just how unknown Sam is. It makes it really difficult to predict. As much as I want Pape to win, and his training does look really good right now, his deadlift looks back to where it was before when he pulled that 363, whatever it was. His squat looks decent. As long as he gets his bench up a little bit, it'll be tight. But again, it's just the unknown of Sam Watt. Where's he going to be on the day? Because he always has good comps. He pretty much always goes 9 for 9. He's been doing this for years. He knows what he's doing.
I have also just looked. So Sam's best total is from British 2022, which is the last one he did. And that was 887. And I don't know, I didn't watch the performance at the English, but he didn't even put in a third deadlift. Whether that's because he didn't think there was anything left or just because he didn't need it. He stopped at 350. He didn't load anymore. And I think in the past he's hit 367. So that could also be a bit of a low total for him. I would also like to back Pape, but I'm not going to because he refused to come on for an episode. So, I feel confident that Sam's going to play second, because I think Sanchez or Pape will miss and the other one will take the lead. I think one of those two will come in first, and I'm fairly confident with that. And then I think Sam will get second, because I think he'll just stay focused on his own thing. But I could be swayed any direction on that one. I think it's going to be close. And also with Pape, he's only just changed to Mike, he's only just changed coach. So it depends as well. I know his training is looking really solid, but this will be his first peak with him. So it also depends how that goes too.
Yeah, I think a factor that we've not touched on quite yet is Sanchez historically has had some squat depth issues as well. So that can be a variable. Obviously, if Sanchez can pull 410 plus, he's there. But is it if he misses a big jump in a squat, if he misses a third squat on a depth call, something like that, and it's hard, how does that impact the rest of the day? Ultimately, he's going to have the final say. Pape's training looks good. He looks very good, and he's confident, which I think is the best version of Ben as an athlete, is when he has that almost overconfidence in himself and his ability. He's yeah, cool, put whatever on. So I think he'll come in good shape. But I think if Sanchez misses a squat, I don't think I'm not sure the pull will be enough. If again, a Ben 9 for 9, it becomes very hard to beat. Sam is a difficult one to predict, isn't it, really? Because that 2022 total was against Mo and Ben.
Yeah.
The British in 22, and it just came down to Sam pulling more and was cool, done. So it's going to be an interesting battle for sure. And I think the guys are fairly clear. Obviously, I work with CJ in fourth, and he looks great. There's a lot of kilos to take on top of Western Euros. But I think, again, if all those boys are pushing 880 plus, it's probably a little bit clear. So it'll be interesting to see CJ versus Ash. And to be fair, looking at that now, the grouping from fourth all the way down is very, very tight. It's a 22 kilo spread from fourth to the bottom of prime time.
And you got to think that might be like a Western Euro spot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's stuff to earn now, especially with all the money meets and the like sort of tertiary internationals. There's still stuff on the line with that, even if it's not podium.
Am I right in thinking you coach Ashley Liston as well, Lewis?
No, he stopped after Istanbul bench Euros.
Okay.
He just had so much going on in life that it was kind of hard to have a consistent athlete coach relationship with him and like programming around it. It was just easier. We kind of like both agreed that it was just easier for him to do his own thing for a little bit and just self-program into the British, which he knew would be like a risk, but he's doing it more for fun. I think it's more this year is like get his feet back on the ground again, because he's only started powerlifting again earlier this year.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I think he's got a lot of potential to catch up to those podium spots. I just didn't know how training's been lately.
We went on holiday 2 weeks ago and took a week off, but he's come back and bench 220 again and pulled through pretty easily. So hit that 817 he did. He had the flu and ended up like, I don't know if everyone saw the photo, but his face just like swelled up, like all bruised.
Yeah.
But that was still like a good day considering. Like, but he's someone that has obviously won the 93s before. Many years ago, back in 2019, I think. He's competed internationally before. He's a bit of a veteran compared to some of the guys on the list, but he should be pushing like 850 plus if he was like healthy and had good run of training. But I think him and CJ will be a good close battle, and as well as Dapo as well. Like Dapo's gone up a weight class. His training looks good. His deadlift is huge, so you can't really write off fourth place. I think it'll be close between CJ, Ash, and Dapo. It just kind of depends on how Ash comes into the comp, Dapo as well, in terms of just like making lifts, and then CJ obviously has got a huge bench and a big old deadlift, and if that squat is fine with depth on his third and stuff, then he's well up there as well.
Is it Dapo's first comp of the 105 as well?
He's second. He's done one before. I think
Pretty sure there are comp as a 105.
he did. Yeah, he might have done yours, or he might have did a London one. I think he's dabbled and done a couple at 105. I think for him, he's been caught out with like squat depth a couple of times. I think that's what happened at selections. So it's just going to be interesting. Again, come down to like with Dapo, you can't write him off with those sort of battles, being the big deadlifter that he is. Yeah, and then also Eric as well. Like Eric is very, very strong. Brannick's gone a little bit quiet with training, but is again one of those reliable lifters that's quite a good all-rounder. So yeah, that's going to be tight. It's going to be very tight.
I think top three will be 880 plus.
Yeah.
Unless one of them misses a lift and then redoes their own legs for the day. But I think if they all make their lifts, it'll be 880 plus in all three.
I think it'll be interesting. And I guess we still don't know either what international selection looks like for next year. Is it just going to be the top in each weight class? Is it going to be a couple in each? Because we normally take 2 105s, I think, don't we? I guess we'll see.
Can we quickly rip through the 120s? Because I've got like 3 minutes and I don't want to miss this one.
Yeah. Do you want to take the lead, Dan?
Well, why don't we? Because we could talk about this all day long. If everyone just goes round and says 1, 2, 3, what's it going to be?
Go on, you go.
Not so Tony Mo.
Tony,
oh, there you go, Lewis.
Sorry.
Do you want me to go?
Tony nonsense.
I went.
Fucking
no. Lewis, talk.
Me,
Nonso Mo. Go.
Tony Nonso Indy.
Ooh.
Mo, Nonzo, Tony.
Fucking hell. All right.
Do you want to give thoughts, Dan, before you have to go?
I think Nonso is the strongest person there. Is he the best powerlifter? No, Tony is. I just think he's going to be just too strong to be like out tacticked on the day. But I think Tony will be very solid coming in second. Mo and Indy could easily swap themselves over depending on Mo just being not an idiot, basically. Like if Mo just hits depth, doesn't like go nuts and cramp a million times, or run away from the warm-up room, or miss his weigh-in slot, because these are things that Mo does, he'll be all right. But he just needs to just have someone to keep him on the straight and narrow, just get all his squats in, because Mo at 100% as strong as he can be is up there challenging Tony and Onso. It's going to be interesting. He just needs to get his depth. He needs to squat to depth. He needs to lock his deadlifts out, and just needs to keep himself on an even keel for the day. And I think that will be enough for him to have third, if not more, if people ahead of him trip up. Indy's going to load up massively to try and come in, and it's going to be interesting to see, because if Indy can pull 4 to 4:05 or whatever to put him into second, third, even first, like it honestly, it completely depends on what people in front of him do. It could flip-flop itself around, but gun to my head, none so Tony Mo. I'll leave. Goodbye.
Right. Okay, bye. I put Mo in first purely because he hit 9:37 at Arnold's, and that was a long time ago now, and his trainings looked really good, and he's still not filled the 120. So if he manages to cramp with no sort of cut in the winter when it's not even warm, the hanger's probably going to be freezing cold, then something is seriously wrong. Like, I think he's got potential, and what was said about Nonso not being the best powerlifter, this is where I think I don't know if he'll necessarily miss lifts, but he is young, but he's had a lot of big PBs this year already. And I know the momentum can continue when you're that young, but can it really continue for this long? And is he going to go for a Hail Mary pull? Because Indy and him both have such big pulls. I think it's going to come down to who's willing to load up more. And I think Nonso will load up more and he'll miss, where I think Indy will load up, let's say 400 and hit. And then I think Tony will just play his own game and take what's there.
I think the important thing is Nonso did juniors not long ago as well. I know, like, he recovers well and his training's gone well, but
Block's been pretty hard.
it's a lot of it's prep after prep, and it does take its toll. And then Tony's not competed since Worlds, which was June.
Yeah.
He's got more time to kind of come into comp. His training looks really fucking strong. Like, his squat looks like it's blown up again. Now he's back in rigor mortis sleeves. His deadlift looks good. His bench, you know, he's going to bench 250 plus. And I think, like, if you have Tony on a really good day, he squats like 350 plus, bench 250 plus, pulls what, 360s?
Yeah, 360.
Like, I just think it's a bit too much for Nonso to catch. I still think Nonso is pretty secure in second, regardless. To be honest, I think how it's written down with Tony Nonso is how I predict it will go. I think third is up for grabs. I'm handling Indy. I really want him to get podium, and we'll try and push for that. And his training does look really good at the moment. But I just think Mo has the edge a little bit. But training-wise, he just looks really strong. His deadlift is the only one for me where it's a little bit hit and miss because of lockout. It always looks a little bit soft. And when he gets called for that, it can really tank him. But he's got such a big advantage on bench compared to Indy. I think he benched almost 40 kilos more than him. So, like, if you look at it in terms of, like, their squats aren't too different, like maybe plus 5, 10 kilos. He benches a lot more, and then it will come down to whatever he loads as deadlift, and then Indy will just come down to whatever Mo does. Indaraj loads that third deadlift to beat him, I guess. But I want Indaraj to get third from, like, a personal perspective. I think from, like, a more professional outlook on it, an objective outlook, I think I'll go Tony Nonso, Mo.
Yeah, like it's hard to argue, and I think it's pretty bang on. I think that third spot is Mo's to lose. For me, like I think it's that experience factor. Like, I think TC is going to rock up. Has been here countless times before. Has had the time to build momentum in, and training does look very, very good. And, like, if he's showing what he's showing, there's probably more good behind it that he's not. Like, Nonso's training blocks have seemed to have been very hard recently, like more so than I think would be reasonable, like especially off the back of Worlds, right, where obviously he missed and stuff. It's almost like that's trying to be forced to be strong, and there's going to be a bit of burnout that comes somehow after a busy year, and hopefully it comes afterwards and we see. But I just think he'll be strong enough to sit there and be fairly comfy, but I don't think he'll be strong enough to push TC, who'll be like got a point to prove, I think, a little bit. Obviously there's been a lot of talk on socials, isn't there? For me with Mo, I think it depends how hard he pushes the needle on squats. I think if he's sensible and stays reserved, he sells things really, really well. I think when you end up in that last, like, top end couple of percent, my personal is I always think he looks a little bit on the line. And I think if that goes one way with the referees, that opens a door for Indy, as well as obviously the soft lockouts and stuff that have been discussed, where it looks a little bit like that. That will open the door for Indy to pull. I think Mo goes 3 for 3 there. as like again, it's that Mo goes 6'6", it becomes hard for that deficit to be caught up on the pull. But I could see Mo cutting a squat and getting tripped up by it, is what I'm saying, basically. And I think that opens the door for Indy to sneak in, because Indy's training has looked pretty sharp after like a challenging year. So he's got that momentum coming in.
Yeah, I think it's Mo's to lose, really. Like if he messes up a lift, then Indaraj is there, and it's definitely his.
I missed part of that because my headphones died. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you all good.
Yeah. I think you were saying about Mo potentially squatting high.
Yeah, basically.
I took a slightly different thought on that, and I was like, well, Tony does sometimes squat high.
Oh yeah, he cuts
recent videos, and I think if he is pushing to try, I mean, Tony's obviously sensible, he's done it for so long, but if Tony does get called for squats, that's where I think third, fourth, Indy Tony can switch up. But I do think Nonzo is so like, I agree that I think it looks like Nonzo is pushing his training a bit too much, trying to force. I think all this talk this year of him emerging and him being the strongest in the country and going to Worlds next year and putting up a fight as such a young lifter might have potentially swayed what they're doing in training. And he's pushing a little bit too hard and forcing it, where actually he's strong enough to win. But if he comes in even slightly burnt out or under recovered, then what's going to happen? But yeah, I think if Mo lifts to standard, I do think 9:37 back in what Arnold's was January, February time. They're all got the same total, really. It just depends who shows up on the day.
I think this will be the closest comp from memory that Nonso will have in terms of competitiveness. So like if you look at it in terms of like his junior comps as a sub junior, he's always been well ahead. Juniors this year in Malta, I think he was ahead by a fair bit. Maybe like
he was pretty clear. There was an American who was close, but like not close enough that it was a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So like obviously he's a really good kid and he's really, really strong. But like whether the pressure of having that in terms of more competitors near him, like just edges him a little bit, or whether like he uses that as really like a positive confidence, it'll go one or two ways. But it'll be really, really close and really good to watch regardless.
Yeah, I think that's the class I'm most excited. Well, that's the prime time I'm most excited for. 105s and 120s together. I think they've done that really well on the Saturday night. Like I will be surprised if that room's not packed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it could literally go between the four of them. Bo is normally in the 120s. Have I made this up?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's not on this year. And I feel like the other guys are probably, I don't know the other guys too well. I feel like they're probably a bit too far to be in that discussion if we're thinking 900 plus for the top four.
Like Kurt McLaren looks really strong at the minute in training. Like he looks good and is someone that I think we've spoke about. Like he's really, really strong, but maybe historically hasn't been as good a power lifter to like put that together. Like, and I think every comp I've seen Kurt do, he has gotten better and better. Well, he's always been strong, but like he's been able to demonstrate that. So I'm really interested to see how Kurt performs. Obviously, there's no Benji Wharton. Benji Wharton's pulled out. I think he had a stress fracture in his forearm, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then again, you've got Timmy, who's an exciting junior just off the back of your junior Euros. So it'll be interesting to see how much he can add to that 840 on a tight turnaround as well, because that's an even tighter turnaround than Nonso at Worlds. That's
that was the same time as Commonwealth, I think, wasn't it? So what, 6 weeks, maybe 7?
To be fair, it was a pretty good 840 as well. But there was definitely kilos left there. Other than he missed a squat, didn't he?
I'm not sure. I think so. Yeah, actually, it was close. Yeah, that third, because it was going in for a squat medal. It's again, the standard is so deep. It's just interesting to see these individuals now and where they push up. But it's hard to look past how exciting that top four is.
Yeah, definitely. 120 plus, final class, 11 lifters. Would one of you like to take this on, or do you want me to?
I mean, I can. I know Aaron fairly well through the North Midlands, who he is. I think this is going to be really interesting. Obviously, you got AJ 980. Obviously, you decided he was going to lift for India last year into this year, and then I believe India had got a ban from the IPF for X amount of like doping things. So he obviously.
Am I right in thinking he was supposed to be on the India's World team this year, and then they got back just before?
Yeah. So like, obviously they decided I'm going to go and lift for India, not GB. And then obviously that's all happened. So he's gone, right, now I'm gonna stay with GB. It's going to be very interesting how strong he turns up, because he's historically one of those lifters where like, you're really strong, but I'm always scared you're going to dump a bar on us. But that last comp, the West Mids comp that he did, looked very, very good. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see him knock north of 1,000. And just be fairly clear. Aaron looks pretty strong. Again, it's just how he paces in. I hope for him he knocks off that 400 plus squat finally, because he's had a couple of cracks at it now. And he's looked fairly strong in training. I know he just missed quite a big double, but like I think pacing and recovery wise, he should be fine. I'm not too familiar with Paul.
Strong.
Yeah, I think Paul's who Aaron beat at the English.
Yeah, and he had a good day as well. Like kilos left, training looks really strong. He just doesn't train on comp kit, so like he'll go to like a random pure gym or like the gym and puts like 380 on the bar and it's bent as fuck, mate, and he's like walking out and wobbling everywhere. I was talking
He's
about
still
it the other day.
fairly new as well. I think it's a bit 2-3 years. I think he's been around, Paul.
I'll check.
I don't think he's been around too long, but yeah, they were at the English together, and Aaron placed just ahead.
Yeah, 2 years beaten.
Yeah, so I think the big battle there, really, unless AJ really trips up, I think is going to be between Aaron and Paul and where they position within that. Obviously, at that sort of level, any mistake, because the size of the jumps can really open doors. Like Aaron, again, like squat and bench looks really good. Deadlift tends to be where he lags a little bit just because of leverages. But I think that's the same with Paul, isn't it? Paul's very much a subtotal boy, isn't he?
We've got a good deadlift, 340-ish.
Okay, yeah, so he's the bigger puller than Aaron then, isn't he?
340, he did it all England.
They're both quite similar in pulls. I think Aaron's is around that, if I remember rightly from yesterday when I was having a look. I think they're quite.
He's had some issues with it, like just whether that's hook grip or mixed or something like that. But he seems to be getting it cracked. So it'll be interesting. And again, obviously come down to like, I think handling will be a big variable there as well. Like just the person who makes the least mistakes out of those two. It will come down to that last one. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a match total and a placing on body weight again. Personally, I'm also a bit biased. I want to see what Thomas can do and see Thomas to go over 800 kilos.
Tomo, mate.
Because he's one of the Uni Worlds boys and he was Durin from Wish with his towel over his head in Estonia. And he's just such a good lad and I want to see him go over 8.
No, I think it's really good across all the weight classes, men and women, the amount of people that are either just out of juniors or still juniors that have just signed up anyway, just to get the experience, like this every weight class pretty much. With the 120 plus, I had fairly similar notes. I put AJ in first, providing, like you said, if you miss a lift at that level in that weight class, like that's like 20 kilos off your total potentially, like it could be a lot closer to that. I put Paul in second just because he seems to be more consistent with attempts. Because the thing is with Aaron, if Aaron can get that 400 squat, then Aaron could win. I do think that, because normally what he does is he does a somewhat like 380 opener and he'll jump straight to 400 and try it twice and he'll miss. But he'll always hit it 2 weeks out in training. And I just think at that body weight, 400 kilo squat 2 weeks out from a comp, you don't need to do it. Like you're not going to recover in that 2 week period. You're just not, or even week period. I don't know how close he normally does it, but I feel like every single time I've seen him compete, I've seen a 400 squat that looks decent, like a week or two out, and then he can never match it on the platform. So hopefully this time he's paced better into comp. He's going to go in because he can squat 400. He's done it before. His squats look to standard in training. He just needs to do it on the day. And I think if he manages to do it, potentially win, if not comfortably in second. But I've put him in third just because of the consistency.
Yeah, that's fair.
Didn't he fail a 400 double the other day?
Yeah, that was a 380 double.
Oh, it was a 380 double.
Yeah, it was a 380 double. The first one was pretty solid, and then just ran out of beans. Right.
That's where I think pacing is so important in that weight class, and for him specifically, like trying to squat 400 twice. Like, yes, I think the logic is probably I'll give it two cracks. Like he could hit 380 any day. I'll give it 2 goes. But the amount of energy you're using up, even just walking out 400 twice, like it's not needed. Like 10 kilos added to his total just from squatting 390 instead.
It's true.
So that'll be interesting.
I'd say the same as you, Sean. I think AJ, Paul, and Aaron in that order.
I think we're there, guys.
Yeah.
All the weight classes. Any other special mentions you're excited to see? Any classes in particular you're excited to see?
I think that the 74s will be the dark horse class. I think, you know, when you look back at sessions that like define a champs, or like the memorable sessions for each British, I think on paper it's the 105s, 120s, that prime time. But I think the 74s, with how close those boys will be, I think that could be a surprise one.
I completely agree. The 74s don't have a prime time either, do they? I don't think.
Nope.
So
No.
It wasn't until I was looking up everyone yesterday, because I knew Stephen Day had competed at Worlds, but obviously selection in different countries is different. Like, just because you've competed for Australia doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be prime time level numbers or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I looked through open powerlifting, I realised actually no, top 3 alone is close, but there's still, I think 74s is going to be very underrated. I think hopefully a lot of people go watch it because it's going to be really interesting to see. Also can see some juniors on there as well, but I think will be really fun, especially because they haven't got a prime time. So getting to be in there with those higher level lifters will be really interesting for them, and I think a really good experience. We'll wrap it up there. I will thank you guys for hopping on. We'll do it again.
Yeah,
Future
definitely.
comments.